There's a $6 box sitting in the laundry aisle of every grocery store in America. It has been there for 100 years. Your grandmother used it, the wagon and the team of mules right there on the front. White powder inside, and nobody walking past it looks at it twice. Walk into a shop in London, or Berlin, or Dublin, and you cannot buy that box. Not restricted, not kept behind the counter. Gone. Pulled off consumer shelves across the European Union and the United Kingdom, and the box they sell in its place is a different chemical wearing a similar name. Same powder, 2 continents, opposite answers. Now, before you go throw yours in the trash, the reason has almost nothing to do with what that powder does inside a drain pipe, and I am going to walk you through what those regulators actually looked at, because the honest version of that story is worth more to you than either the panic or the shrug. But first, I want you to go find the slowest drain in your house tonight. Half a cup of that powder and 8 hours of leaving it alone is going to change how that drain behaves by morning. And stay with me to the end, because there's a test you can run with a jug of water and the timer on your phone that tells you whether any of this will work on your drain before you spend a single dime. 20 years ago, that same drain took everything you poured at it. You emptied a stock pot into it, and the water was gone before the pot was back on the counter. Nobody in the house thought about that drain, because a drain that works is invisible. Somewhere in those 20 years, it stopped being invisible, and I would bet money you cannot tell me the week it happened. That is the whole tell right there. Nothing fell in it. Nothing broke. It got slow the way a person gets out of shape, a little at a time. And by the time you noticed it, you had already been living with it for a year. Here is what is actually happening in that pipe. Every time hot, greasy water goes down, a thin film of that grease cools and sticks to the pipe wall. Soap does the same thing. Skin oil off your hands, the fat off a dinner plate, the conditioner out of your hair, all of it leaves a layer. Then hair and coffee grounds and lint catch in that layer, and the whole mess turns into a soft coating that lines the inside of the pipe like plaque in an artery. The pipe is not blocked. The pipe is narrower. Same length, same slope, smaller hole. And here is the part that connects 2 things you probably thought were separate problems. That film is not just grease. It is alive. Bacteria set up in it and feed on it. And what they give off is the sour, swampy smell that comes up out of that drain when the house is quiet. The slow drain and the funk are not 2 problems. They are 1 problem. And you are smelling the exact thing that is choking your pipe, which is why the stuff people usually reach for does not fix it. Boiling water melts the grease for about 4 feet, and then it cools, and the grease sets right back down further along the pipe, like wax running off a candle onto the holder. A snake punches a hole through the middle and leaves the coating on the wall, so the drain runs great for 2 weeks and then creeps right back to slow. And the caustic chemical in the red bottle generates real heat inside a pipe it was never asked to be gentle with, which is a conversation I have had with too many people holding a crack trap. What that film actually responds to is mild alkalinity and time, not force, time. So let me tell you what borax is, because the name does more work than it should. Borax is sodium tetraborate, a mineral salt, mined out of dried lake beds, and the 20 mule team on the box is a literal reference to how they hauled it out of Death Valley in the 1880s. Alkaline means the opposite of acidic, and we measure that on the pH scale, where 7 is neutral and higher numbers are more alkaline. Grease is attacked by alkalinity. That is the whole mechanism behind every degreaser under your sink. Now put the 3 white powders in your house side by side, because this is where people get it wrong and waste money. Baking soda sits around pH 8, barely alkaline. It is a fine deodorizer, and it is safe enough to eat, which tells you everything about how hard it is willing to work on set grease. It is the featherweight. Washing soda sits around pH 11. That is not a little stronger, because the pH scale is logarithmic, meaning each whole number is 10 times the last. 11 against 8 is 1,000 times more alkaline. Washing soda will genuinely take grease apart, and it will also take the oil out of your skin and irritate your eyes if you are careless with it. That is the heavyweight, and you save it for a drain that is actually giving you trouble. Borax sits around pH 9.5, right in the middle. But the number is not the interesting part. Borax is a buffer, which means it resists changes in pH instead of spiking and then fading. Pour washing soda in, and you get a hard alkaline hit that dilutes down as water moves through. Borax holds a mild, steady alkaline condition in that trap for hours. And when you are trying to soften a film over 8 hours of dwell time, steady beats strong. That is why it is the maintenance powder. It is also a mild abrasive, so it has some physical scrub to it as water moves it across the film. And it is a real deodorizer, not a cover-up, because it makes the trap water hostile to the bacteria living in that grease layer. You are not masking that smell. You are making the neighborhood unlivable for the things producing it. And unlike lye-based cleaners, it generates no meaningful heat, so it is not a threat to old PVC or galvanized fittings. Now, the money, because that is what this channel is actually about. A 65-ounce box runs $6 to $8, depending on where you shop. Half a cup is roughly 3.5 ounces, so you are getting somewhere near 18 treatments out of a box. Call it 35 to 45 cents a treatment. Not pennies, I want to be accurate with you, but 40 cents. A plumber coming out for a single slow drain runs $100 to $275, and the national average lands right around $245. That is for a job that often takes under an hour. I am not telling you plumbers are crooks. I am one. I am telling you that nobody in this trade makes a living on prevention. So nobody in this trade is going to call you up and mention a 40-cent box. There is no money in it. That is not a conspiracy. That is just how the invoice works. Quick pause before the method, the powder hierarchy, the cost math, knowing when a cheap fix is the real fix and when it absolutely is not. That thinking is what went into my book, 100 Old House Fixes that save you thousands. It is heavy on the questions worth asking a contractor before you agree to anything. Link is in the description or the QR code on your screen. By 6 the next morning, here is what you are going to find, and here is exactly how you get there. Step 1. Pick your drain and get it as dry as you reasonably can. Not bone dry, just do not dump this into a sink holding 2 inches of standing water, because then you are treating the water instead of the pipe. If the fixture has been sitting, run it briefly and let it drain down first. Step 2. Half a cup of borax, straight down, dry powder. Do not dissolve it first in a jar. You want it landing in the trap and coating the walls on the way through, not arriving pre-diluted. Step 3, and this is where I lose people. 2 cups of hot water behind it. Hot, not boiling. And the reason matters, so listen to this one. Borax is poorly soluble in cold water. It does not want to dissolve down there. Its solubility climbs steeply with temperature. So hot water pulls it into solution and cold water leaves half of it sitting there as grit doing nothing. If you chase this with cold tap water, you have wasted the treatment and you will tell everyone borax does not work. But not boiling either. PVC starts softening in the neighborhood of 140 degrees, and boiling water is 212. Hot out of the tap is right. If you want it hotter, run the kettle and let it sit a minute off the boil. Step 4 is the one that actually does the work, and it is the one nobody wants to hear. You leave it alone for 8 hours. Nobody runs that tap. Nobody flushes that toilet if it is a bathroom sink sharing the line. This is why I am telling you to do it at night, because 8 uninterrupted hours is something a house gives you exactly once a day. Every daytime drain treatment ever invented gets 30 seconds of contact time and then gets rinsed away by the next person washing their hands. The dwell is the active ingredient. The powder is just what is dwelling. Step 5, and do not skip this. In the morning, run hot water down at drain for a solid minute or 2. I want to tell you why that step is mandatory, because it gets treated as optional cleanup. Remember that borax dissolves way better hot than cold. Well, that works in reverse too. As this solution sits overnight and cools down toward room temperature, some of the borax comes back out of solution and settles. That is literally how children grow borax crystals for science fair projects. Same principle. So in the morning, there is loosened film and settled powder sitting in your trap, waiting for a ride. And the hot flush is what dissolves it and carries the whole lot out. Skip the morning flush, and you have moved the problem 6 inches, not removed it. That is the treatment. Weekly, on a drain that runs slow but is not blocked. Now, Europe. Somebody in the comments is already typing it, so let me give you the straight version. In 2010, the European Chemicals Agency put borax on the substance of very high concern list under a regulation called REACH, which is essentially their chemical registration system. It carries a reproductive toxicity classification, category 1B, which is the wording about possible harm to fertility and to an unborn child. Products sold in the EU and the UK carrying borax have to carry those warnings, and as a practical matter, borax vanished from consumer cleaning shelves. What they sell now is labeled borax substitute, and it is sodium sesquicarbonate, a different compound entirely. That is all true, and I am not going to soften it. But here is what is also true, and you deserve both halves. The animal studies underneath that classification involve rodents force-fed doses of these compounds enormously higher than anything a person encounters using the product, and much of that data concerns boric acid, specifically rather than borax. The safety sheets themselves note the exposure levels were many times what could occur through normal product use. The concern is ingestion and sustained high exposure. It is not a half cup going down a pipe and out to the sewer. And the regulators genuinely contradict each other on this, which is the part I find useful rather than sinister. The EU will not let you buy borax to clean with, but permits it as a preservative in caviar. The United States runs it exactly backward, where it is a legal laundry booster and is not permitted as a food additive. Two serious regulatory bodies looked at overlapping evidence and drew the line in different places. That happens more often than people think, and it does not mean one of them is lying to you. So, what does that mean for your Tuesday night? Handle it like the mineral salt it is. The box stays up and away from kids and pets, and the American label already says exactly that. Keep out of reach of children. Do not eat it, and do not let a toddler play in it. If you have sensitive skin, wear gloves, because sustained contact with any alkaline powder will dry your hands out. And do not go breathing the dust as you pour, which means pour it low and slow instead of dumping it from shoulder height. Now, 3 more safety items, and the first one is not optional. Never mix borax with vinegar or any other acid. And I know exactly why people do it, because the internet has trained everybody that vinegar plus a powder equals cleaning. What actually happens chemically is that the acid converts the tetraborate back toward boric acid and neutralizes the alkalinity. The alkalinity was the entire reason you poured it down there. You get some bubbling, which feels productive, and you have chemically switched off the one property doing your work. If you want to fizz, watch a volcano video. Keep it out of your trap. Second, septic. At this dose and this frequency, you are fine. Borax at normal household amounts does not wipe out the bacteria in a tank the way chlorine bleach does, and it dilutes into a very large volume of water. Where people get in trouble is volume, so do not read this video and decide to run half a cup down 6 drains every night. One slow drain once a week is nowhere near the boron concentration that starts inhibiting anything. If your system is old or you have had a backup recently, back it off to twice a month. Third, read the box. You want pure sodium tetraborate and nothing else. Some products shelve next to it labeled as a borax blend and carry added surfactants, fragrance, or in some cases, bleach. Bleach is a different animal entirely, and it does not belong in this routine. Let me hit the problems I know you're going to run into. It did not do anything overnight. Then your drain is probably not film limited. And we are going to settle that at the end of this video with the test I promised you. But before you conclude that, check that you actually used hot water on the chase, because that is far and away the most common reason this fails. It helped, but it came back in 10 days. That is normal, and it is not a failure. This is maintenance, the same way brushing your teeth is maintenance. The film starts rebuilding the moment you flush the pipe. Weekly is weekly for a reason. The smell went away and then came back a week later, but the drain runs fine. Check whether that fixture has an overflow opening, the little hole up near the rim. That channel holds its own film and your drain treatment never touches it, because the water goes down the drain, not up through the overflow. 2 or more drains are slow at the same time. Stop. Put the box down. When multiple fixtures slow down together, the problem sits downstream in the main line where they all meet, not in any one of those pipes, and no powder poured into a bathroom sink is going to reach it. That is a genuine call for a professional with a camera, and that is money well spent because you need to know whether you have a blockage or a broken pipe. And that is my honest limit on this whole thing. Borax maintains, and it deodorizes. It softens a film so water can move again. It will not clear a drain that is actually stopped. If water is standing in a fixture and not moving at all, you have a physical obstruction, and that needs mechanical clearing. A plunger or a snake or a person with equipment. Pouring powder into standing water accomplishes nothing but making you feel like you tried. So here is what I promised you at the top. Before you buy anything, before you commit to a routine, go get a 1-gallon jug and fill it with water. Stand at that slow drain, start the timer on your phone, pour the gallon in at a steady rate, and stop the timer when the last of it disappears. Write that number down. Do not trust your memory of how it used to be, because your memory of that drain is 20 years of gradual, and it is useless as a baseline. Now, run your borax treatment. Overnight, hot chase, morning flush, exactly as I laid it out. Then the next evening, run the same gallon and time it again. If that number came down at all, even a few seconds, you have a film problem and you have just proved that borax reaches it. Put it on the calendar weekly and you will keep that drain out of trouble for 40 cents a week. If that number did not move, not even slightly, then stop buying powder. Any powder. What you have is structural rather than a coating on the wall. A belly in the line where the pipe has sagged and holds water. A partial obstruction, roots, a venting problem. No amount of alkalinity fixes geometry. And every week you spend treating it is a week you're not fixing it. Knowing which of those two you have got is worth more than the treatment itself. And it took you 2 minutes and a jug of water to find out. That box in the laundry aisle is not a miracle, and it is not a menace. It is a mineral salt that 2 governments filed in different drawers. And the argument they are having about it has nothing to do with the 8 hours it is going to spend quietly loosening the grease in your bathroom sink tonight. One last thing. If this saved you a service call, that is the whole idea behind my book. 100 old house fixes that save you thousands. Inside is the seasonal maintenance calendar I run, plus how to catch a leak before it gets into your floors and cabinets. Link is in the description or the QR code on screen. And if you want more old house fixes that keep money in your pocket, subscribe to Roger, the Pipe Guy.